Thank you everyone for joining us for the Hill CDC's Hill District Plans meeting. Today, as you know, is June 22nd, and we're looking forward to having a very active presentation. We have several Hill CDC team members here with us this evening. Some will be speaking to you about different things. We want to take an opportunity to introduce you also to Jordan Malloy, Programs and Policy Manager for the organization. We also have Dylan Brown, who is a Community Development Fellow with the organization, and Jordan Smith will be talking to you a little bit about our work on Center Avenue. As you know, my name is Miranda Lyons, President and CEO of the Hill Community Development Corporation. We want to welcome you to this very important forum that we use to make sure we're communicating out all of the planning efforts that are happening in the neighborhood. Most of you, if you follow the Hill CDC, know that we're a place-based organization focused on the equitable redevelopment and revitalization of the Hill District neighborhood, the historic Hill District in particular. We oftentimes say we're cultural legacy meets future innovation because we have one foot firmly planted in the past and the legacy of the community, and one foot firmly planted and moving towards the future. We are celebrating over 35 years of operation. Tonight, we are going to be talking to you about Center Avenue, the Hill District Parks Master Plan. There is extensive planning work that is happening with the city planning departments and the city of Pittsburgh, as well as the Hill CDC and a broad array of other partners relative to our Hill District parks. And so what better time to give you another update about that since it is summer. We want you to know what's going to be coming to the Hill District in the future with adequate investment from the necessary partners. We also have an update about Freedom Corner, and then Pittsburgh Regional Transit is going to provide updates as well. The Hill CDC works in partnership with residents and stakeholders to create, promote, and implement strategies and programs that connect plans, policies, and people to drive compelling community development opportunities in the Greater Hill District. Our organization takes citizen engagement very seriously. We do all that we can to make sure that resources are available to the residents and stakeholders of the Hill District relative to planning, development, and other activities that are important to the quality of life of the residents of the Hill District. We do our work in three distinct buckets: people, place, and policy. We oftentimes will say we build up the people while we build up the place, and we advocate for equitable development along the way. Policies that ensure equitable outcomes is essentially how we safeguard our work. And so, we are really excited to be sharing with you a little bit of our work that intersects all of these areas because it is planning work. The areas that we generally cover as an organization are real estate development with a specific focus on our commercial core, meaning Center Avenue. We do have some exciting updates to provide to you this evening relative to Center Avenue, and of course, our home ownership work. That all falls under our real estate bucket. And then we have economic development programs. We do business and entrepreneurship programs. Many of you may know that we currently have a program that's focused on innovation and technology right now called Hill Tech Society. Many of you have participated in that forum, and we are excited to consistently bring small business and entrepreneurship programs that support the growth, economic growth of our neighborhood. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can find it on our website at hilldistrict.org. We also do home ownership preparation, where you can get training and even financing, in some cases, some subsidy to support a home ownership purchase of the homes that we are redeveloping in the neighborhood. And so if you're not plugged into those programs, please do plug in. And then, of course, our arts and culture work, which is really centered on creating places and spaces where arts and culture can thrive. You're going to hear a lot about the Hill District's work, and specifically the Hill CDC's work around building a Black cultural, commercial, and innovation corridor. We're very proud of that work and so excited that Jordan Smith is here to talk to you about it. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, as I mentioned, is our policy and planning work, which this meeting tonight falls within, promoting equitable development by making sure that you as residents have an opportunity to give input directly to the agencies entities that are leading the planning work throughout our region, our city, and our neighborhood. And so we want to really make sure that you are vested, that you are engaged. If you have a question, we ask that you put it in the chat. If the chat is not working for you, we do ask that you put it in the Q&A. If you raise your hand and you'd like to ask a question, please do so. And assuming technology does not fail us, we will actually have you join and ask your question live. So, again, we know sometimes the limitations of technology means that we can't get all of the engagement that we want, but we do have in-person quarterly meetings where we oftentimes will provide additional updates. Our next meeting will be in July, so you won't have to wait long, but please also follow us on all of our social media. We are planning that next community meeting to be on July 13th, and we have a special announcement for how that meeting is going to take place. So the neighborhood planning, the last bullet that you see here is, again, our neighborhood planning work, and all of what you're seeing tonight is really around the neighborhood planning. And so you're gonna get a robust update from our agency partners today. We're going to start off with Jordan Smith of the Hill City C, who's going to give you an update on the great return of Center Avenue. So with no further ado, Jordan, you're on.
Thank you, Marimba. I like the pizzazz you put on that too, the great return. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I'm Jordan Smith, Main Street and Cultural and Main Street Manager. As Marimba said, we're going to get into a little bit of work, the really exciting work that we've been doing with our partner here. You see on the screen, Lisa Yancey. So Lisa Yancey, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but she is an excellent consultant to be working with. We've been really getting into a lot of resident engagement, as Marimba said, and really it's for the various buckets. And I believe we can go one slide forward and we'll kind of get into a little bit more detail. Excellent. So what we've been doing with Lisa, we've been working for a series of grounding conversations, right? When I talk about that resident engagement, a lot of the work for the uplift of Center Avenue and the various focus areas have been resident driven. Of course, we have a lot of different plans. So we've been having these various different conversations, right? And we've been making sure that what we're pulling from these conversations are identifying these low-hanging fruit opportunities. And really they are for, as the second bullet says, to rebuild an economically and culturally thriving district. So we have these focus areas, and we're going to be focused on working with small businesses through arts and culture to really uplift activity along the entire Center Avenue. That's in the culture, that's in the center of culture, center of opportunity, and center of cultivation. So really what we want to make sure, and we're working with Lisa, is making sure that these specific opportunities and these specific activations are to preserve space and produce and retains our own dollars, making sure that we're doing culturally sensitive development or activities throughout the corridor. And through these early stages, we're really focused on, like I said, culture, commerce, and innovation. And really what that means, we'll kind of get into that in the next slide. Excellent. So through the culture, commerce, and innovation corridor, right? I talked about those focus areas, those smaller buckets of places where we're going to be focusing our activities and activations. These are them. So food, innovation, wellness, social community, and learning. And then you can see below them the various different specific areas to where we'll be doing that uplift and those activations. Now, those activations might be work that is already being done. And, we've been doing a lot of the partnering collaboration with organizations. So I talked about a little bit of the grounding conversations earlier. What we really did through those grounding conversations is we had a larger convening of a lot of community members and stakeholders, really to inform this specific piece right here. A lot of collaboration on what is actively being done and uplifted versus where are the places to where we can either fill a temporary need or do something to inspire permanence, right? So for example, food, we all know that the Hill District is a food desert, right? And we have these various different institutions popping up and helping out with the food access. But we know restaurants and delis and small grocers and street food are the specific need that was put out there. So that's kind of what we've been doing with the focus areas. And it's really exciting. Obviously, it's going to span from, like I said, those different intersections all the way across Center Avenue. We can go to the next slide. Wait, do I have any questions? Okay. And so with a lot of that planning, with a lot of those conversations, with a lot of the collaboration, the focus has been complexity, but not complication. What that really means is making sure that as a community, for everyone, unity and community-wide participation is important. I talked about that at the beginning, really emphasizing the resident engagement that was done to inform the work. We have a lot of the plans that inform the work. The engaged stakeholders work together to begin decision-making process, right? We're doing all this different various collaborations, and we want to make sure that the responsibility and the decision-making process is spread evenly amongst all community members, all partnering organizations, right? Making sure that we have a set of non-negotiables, making sure that our the focus areas that we talked about are to strengthen our community economically, politically, structurally, and culturally. So all of that is falling into that bucket. When you hear us say culture, commerce, and innovation along the corridor, those are all the focus areas that have been agreed upon, right? Then making sure that our organizational reps are expressing their willingness to collaborate. I talked about the work that is already being done or new work to be done to be uplifted, right? Making sure that we are all understanding, like the first bullet says, we're working together for promoting unity. And a community-wide solidarity project, that's really, really cool, right? So we talk about all the collaboration and all of the uplift that we're going to be doing. And throughout all of that work that we're collaborating for, we are also making sure that we are continuing to build relationship internally as a community, making sure that we're healing ourselves through the disinvestment over the years, right? So a community-wide solidarity project is really just to unify on various different degrees all the work that is being done together. So that's super cool. And actually, if anyone has any particular ideas about what a community-wide solidarity project they would like to see, send us some information, mail, drop it on one of our social medias in the chat here, because that's something, again, community participation, that's really important. And I believe that might be it. I think we might have some photos. We had a luncheon. I talked about it we can go to the next slide, pretty sure, right? So, this was really cool because we got up and active. So that was a really good participant. I'm good. We're done. Right. Any questions specifically about that work?
Again, if you'd like to, if for whatever reason you are interested in asking a question and not able to put it in the chat, you do want to go live and ask your question, please feel free to raise your hand and we will invite you to ask your question live if you'd like to do so. All right. Seeing none, I am going to thank you, Jordan, very much. We are so excited about that work. Jordan has done a great job with the rest of the Hill CDC team and really moving forward the vision that the community established in the Center Avenue redevelopment and design plan. And so next we will have the Hill District Parks Master Plan Design Review and Recommendations from City Planning. And I believe that we're going to have Martina Badenstone to make that presentation from City Planning. Thank you, Martina.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just have you drive. So for everyone, it's probably been involved at different times. You can hear me, right? I was having audio issues earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we have finalized the Hill District Parks Master Plan, which for everyone that's familiar, is really trying to build on the work of the Green Print and the various planning efforts that have come before. Next slide. As a refresher, these were the areas that were sort of included in this analysis. I haven't included all of them in the details that I'll go into because I mostly focused on the city-owned parks, but acknowledging that all of these spaces are part of the open space and green space in the Hill District neighborhood. And thinking through that, looking at some of the main corridors and how we can be advocating for better connections to and from all of these areas on top of what's happening in the park. This is sort of a review of the amenities that exist in varying qualities at all of the parks. And then at the next slide shows the proposed amenities. So for most of them, kind of a little bit business as usual, but really enhancing the amenities that are already there, and in some cases, thinking through what would actually be serving the community the best, especially, if we can be having one amenity at one space and a new amenity at a different space, so that, those spaces complement each other. Just a quick overview that, we did, it's been, I guess, almost a year now since we did sort of the kickoff with the advisory committee, and a few sort of walk-in talks on site. And we asked for, we did some priority setting. We talked about, who are the ideal user groups in these spaces, and what are the different needs that those groups have, as well as, what's there and working, what's not there, or what's there and not working, and then what can we grow on. So this is what we heard throughout the process. The history of Black athletic excellence in the neighborhood, and the pride that so many people of all generations have felt in the Hill District sports, and that community. Definitely restrooms. We know that is a huge, thing that needs to be both present in the parks and then improved. And just, as we all know from everything that's happening on this call, there's a lot of planning and not a lot of action. So, like, how do we actually implement all of this? And then the plan does include a lot of design recommendations, sort of at a high level. And then I didn't include it, but it's in the final document, a bunch of programming recommendations as well, which I think, most of that has to do with a lot of the partnerships that already exist. And, partners like the Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy, and, the YMCA and everything like that is, such a staple in the community already. So these are, just kind of high level across all the different parks, just some of the things that could be included. So the plan also includes phasing for the neighborhood as a whole, with kind of the first implementation project being Kennard Park, both immediate, and then trying to address the things that can't continue, which we did a little bit by adding an additional porta-john and a few other small things. But Kennard Park being phase 1, Robert E. Williams, Vincennes, and then UPrep, and then Ammon and Albert Turk Graham Park phase 3. This is a little different because some of you might know that the Penguins have committed to investing in Ammon, and with Macedonia, I think that might be moving forward faster than we originally thought when we were going through this, which is great. So this is, that proposed phasing sort of in a graphic form, and then getting into each park. So Kennard, like we said, is definitely the priority. And this just sort of shows you what's going to be included for each park in the plan. So it looks at existing conditions, opportunities, sort of what we heard and what we saw. So this is that for Kennard. And if you go to the next page, this is the concept plan for Kennard. So relocating and improving the football fields. So kind of swapping the football field with the baseball field. Kind of reorienting the basketball courts a little bit, trying to minimize all that fencing that's over there, improving the playground, and including a little splash park, because last summer we saw it was basically just the broken fountain that people were playing in, but it was getting a lot of use, and really trying to provide a lot of shade and seating on site, as well as just better paths leading through the park. So if you go to the next one, this sort of phases out each of those enhancements and improvements, and there is funding to move right into design for Kennard Park. So hopefully either later this year, that will be something that the Department of Public Works can start doing. So it'll be really exciting because that will move into implementation a lot faster. And we know that, the Rebels use that field and it currently floods all the time. And so we're really excited about that. So yeah, going on to Robert E. Williams, really trying to increase the accessibility both to and around the site, and just improve the playground and the basketball courts that are there. So yeah, this is sort of the concept plans, adding a lot of plantings and some kind of like natural pollinators, things like that. And then we also know that facilities is planning to update the building that's there, which is kind of outside the realm of this, but that is coming as well. And then the parklet, definitely, improving kind of connectivity through the park. Right now, it's just kind of like sidewalks that don't really go anywhere. And then really trying to just improve, yeah, you can keep it here, that's fine. Improve some shade, include more accessibility, and incorporating art in a way, because it's a little muted in terms of color and things like that. So that's, yeah, a smaller one. And then the Ammon Park, Josh Gibson, definitely adding shade to the pool, and improving the exterior courts and the playground. Like I said earlier, there is commitment from the Penguins to improve the outside portion at Ammon. And the neighborhood services out of the mayor's office is taking, a lead and working with Macedonia and the Josh Gibson Foundation on doing a lot of engagement around, what people want to see here. What would the community actually use? Because right now we know that those basketball courts are underutilized. The court that the cursor is, oh, that's my cursor, but that main court in the middle is in really bad shape, as well as the playground. So we're really hoping that's going to move forward pretty quickly, because not only is there funding, but there's, a lot of people that are really invested in making that happen. So that's sort of reflected in the narrative in the final plan. And then Albert Turk Graham Park, definitely trying to add shade and some trees, some more seating and sort of community gathering space. And yeah, and across all parks, really trying to increase plantings and both shade and sort of pollinators and the plantings that provide habitat. And, I think everyone is aware that the city doesn't always, have the capacity or funding to maintain a lot of those, but, partners such as the Parks Conservancy do a really good job. So really thinking through what kind of partnerships can we have to ensure that these spaces are not only, improved, but they're maintained after that initial improvement. So yeah, here, or I don't know if I included them. Yeah, I think I just kept that slide in to say the final document has a lot of programming recommendations, the most of which, are just building on a lot of the amazing things that are already happening there, and really trying to think through how we can leverage and provide more city funding to things, with the external partners. And then this is just, kind of acknowledgement of all the work that has happened, and sort of what needs to happen moving forward. So I know I blazed through that. Happy to go back. And the report will be uploaded tomorrow on the Engage page site, which I can put in here. Does anyone have any questions? I put that site, it's not up there yet. But I will get it up shortly.
Great, thank you, Martina. So I know that, parks and outdoor space is a really big thing in the Hill District neighborhood. I definitely encourage residents to utilize the Engage PGH or Engage website on the city's website. It's called Engage PGH, but that's not the domain. We will make sure that you have access to that as well on our Facebook chat.
I'll also add, oh, sorry, there is one for Ammon as well. So,
Okay.
and they're already starting that. So I would say that is like, yeah, the one to weigh in on. And I think that I know Clarence Battle Day, I believe, is at Ammon on Saturday. And that's where they're sort of kicking off things. And then they'll have a true kickoff event in July.
Okay, and what time is that on Saturday, Martina?
I believe it's most of the day. I think maybe
Okay.
10 to 2, but I could be totally making that up.
Okay. Well, we'll see if we can get that out on our social media platforms also. And can you just tell us a little bit about what the city of Pittsburgh hopes to capture this Saturday relative to the community participating in the Clarence Battle Day?
So specifically around Ammon, as you'll see on the website for the Ammon Park Engage page, really getting a sense for what amenities do people use or what would they want to see, and then things like spray features and swings and different types of structures, so that they're really just trying to get a sense of like what are the priorities for the space, in terms of like programming as well as physical amenities.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for that. I definitely want to encourage everyone to come out if you can. You all know that the Hill CDC advocated fiercely to have investments in Ammon as a result of the Lower Hill District Community Benefits Agreement, and we were successful in getting that investment committed. And the city, of course, has been committed to making upgrades at Ammon as well. So together, I think that those investments can be quite substantial, but those investments need to be guided by your input. And so please do all that you can to participate in that process and the other link that we're going to provide to you, because there are a lot of parks in the Hill District that are currently not being utilized because they've not received investment, and this plan is going to guide future investments. So this is, I would say, probably one of your last opportunities to provide clear input on all of the parks of the Hill District. Martina, can you give us a sense of when the final input will be taken and included?
So the plan is done. This is the final document, but I would say that there's one, as each park goes into design and upgrades, there will be more engagement that happens around each of those processes. So for instance, when the design process starts for Kennard, there will be lots of engagement around that, both figuring out, which things in the plan take priority and doing more detailed surveys and things like that. But Ammon, the engagement for Ammon is active and happening now, and that will be happening through the summer. And then I would also just plug that, the city will still be taking input on the budget. And so, encouraging people to advocate for Hill District Parks receiving both capital, and operating and maintenance funding as well.
Fantastic. And I believe those budget hearings are underway now, or?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Maybe I can let's see if I can find one more Engage page to send to you. But yes, I'll just throw this on here.
If you share that, we will share that in our social media. We'll make sure that is in our Hill District Weekend Roundup. for everyone to be aware of how they can give input to the capital budget for the city, encouraging investment into the Hill District, not just through the parks, but in general. So, Martine, if you don't have any final comments beyond what you've already shared, which has been extensive, we definitely thank you for being here. And we will move on to our next presentation. Are you good? Okay, excellent.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you again. All righty. So we are going to move on now to Freedom Corner updates. Most of you know that Freedom Corner incurred some physical damage from a vehicular incident several months ago. And the city of Pittsburgh, as well as community stakeholders, including the Hill City C, have been engaged in a roundtable trying to make sure that those improvements happen, and also that we are thinking about the long-term sustainability of Freedom Corner. So we are very fortunate to have here with us this evening Harvey Butts, who has been doing an excellent job providing technical support to the Freedom Corner committee. And he's here to give us an update on the status of Freedom Corner. Mr. Butts?
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm still not used to this. Do you have my, okay, here it is. So this was the proposal, my sketch of what it will look like after completion of it being repaired. But the main thing given to me to do is just to repair it to be like it was before it was damaged. There are some other items that I am trying to get done in this process to make it a better site on the back end. So we're trying to do this in different phases, but right now, this is what it should look like. Can you go to the next slide? This is it right after the after the accident. We have some issues going on, a lot of issues going on here. Most notably, a lot of the paintwork or signage from utilities, in addition to the broken stone. But the first thing that we did was remove the stone because we had problems with vandalism after the stone was damaged. So the contractor came out. Next slide. This just shows just an aerial view of what's going on. Okay, so this is it. More recently, we actually fenced off the area that was going to be repaired. We pretty much ordered the stone that we felt needed to make the repair. We're in the process of waiting for that stone to be delivered. The delivery time for the stone now is the middle of July. Contractor plans getting onto the site beginning of August, and we plan to have it done within a 6-week period. Next slide. This is showing different issues that I was pointing out to a more specific group is what to be done. We had to deal with the issues of how the sidewalk meets the monument itself, because that's becoming an issue. Next slide. And the ballers, one of the ballers were demolished, and the conditions actually gotten worse with the surrounding area, like the sidewalk. Also, different contractors came on, and as you see here, the sidewalk was being repaired by somebody else, but we're trying to make it unified. So that's another issue we're dealing with. We're also having a major problem with the water retention, and that's something that we want to try to deal with more earlier than later. Before it was just getting the stone replaced, but now I'm more concerned with how the water is sitting because it's becoming an issue. Next slide. That might be it. I don't know if it's out of order, but pretty much what I have to report is just the time that it's going to be done. And like I said, it'll be done by the end of the middle to the end of September. And we're trying to do this in different phases. While we're on site repairing the stone, we actually want to look at how to get water off the site. So that's a part of the funding that we have. Later on, initially we had talked about putting seating there, but it became more important to get the water off the site. So that's what we're dealing with. We're going to have a later phase. Right now, we're looking at signage and a website and getting money together for the city budget to put a storage of seating, some other type of seating arrangement, because that's an issue on site as well. But that's pretty much it. So for all intents and purposes, it should be pretty much back to the way it was at the end of September. And hopefully we will start identifying things that we can put into the budget to have done in 2 later stages, one being signage and the other being additional seating.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Butts. And you're with the Department of Public Works, is that correct?
Yes, DPW. Mhm.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your hard work. Freedom Corner is, sacred land in the Hill District. It is a critical asset, as most Hill District residents know. It is also a cultural asset for our entire region, and helps to tell the story, the very important story of the Hill District and the African-American cultural legacy and contributions to the city and the region. So thank you for your work. We really appreciate it. And we will be looking for you to come back to future meetings to provide an update.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care. All righty. Next, we're going to have PRT. We have both Amy Silberman as well as Ellie Newman here from the Pittsburgh Regional Transit Authority, and they're going to provide updates on what's happening with PRT, specifically as it intersects with the Hill District. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Marimba. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Silberman. I'm the Director of Planning and Service Development at Pittsburgh Regional Transit, formerly Port Authority. Ellie Newman from my team's also here tonight, and she can help maybe answer any detailed questions you might get on two of the projects that I'm going to give an overview on, but I'm going to give an overview on like 5 projects, just a really brief update on them. To let you know where we are at. So first on the list is some corridor projects. So if we have met before in a Zoom meeting, it was probably at some point during the pandemic while we were doing our long range plan, which is called Next Transit. You see, we came to your meetings every other month to talk about that planning process, and what you see on the map in front of you is sort of where we landed with the ultimate corridors that were proposed for long-term future infrastructure projects throughout the county. So I believe there are 17 corridors, so lots of work to keep us busy for many decades to come. And the one that is most notable to the Greater Hill District and also the most timely is the first corridor project that we are proposing to move into our planning process. But before I get into that one that has moved beyond planning and is now actually moving into its construction phase is our Bus Rapid Transit project, which last week on the 13th, we had a event with the Federal Transit Administration. They were in town for a conference, a transit conference, and they were able to present us with the final check, which was for just about $150 million. So no small chunk of change, which is the final funding that was needed to carry that project forward. With that project moving into construction, we will have service changes happening on some of the downtown to Oakland to East End bus routes. Starting this fall. So the changes will happen over a period of a few years, but this fall we will have 4 major changes to service, and those are on routes 61D and 71A, C, and D. Those 4 routes will no longer come into uptown and downtown. So they will come all the way into Oakland, and then they will turn around at the edge of Oakland near Craft Avenue. So that is a significant change. We'll be doing a lot of work over the coming months to help get that message out there in advance of that change happening. So that is one of the first changes that people will see as part of this project. And then the construction for the project will begin in downtown later this year on 5th and 6th Avenues, and will continue through next year. The construction changes in downtown are not too significant. They'll be adding in stations on 5th and 6th Avenues for the BRT stations. And then at some point, traffic in the direction where the bus lanes will go will be sort of turned off, and the bus traffic will be turned on. So I can provide another update as we get closer, if we're here, anyway, giving you some updates on some planning projects with when all of that is happening. We don't know. It'll be next year at some point that the actual traffic changes in downtown happen as a result of that project. And I know there was a specific question that maybe I can cover at the end, specific to Kirkpatrick Street, as it relates to the construction for this project, unless you'd like me to cover that now, Marimba, since we're on the topic anyway.
Sure, you can cover it now. Thank you.
Okay. I do have a slide with an image, which might make it easier for folks. If am I able to share or not? Maybe, yeah, let me try. No, I can't. Okay. Sorry, I can describe it. So, or if you have the ability to kind of pull up the corner of Kirkpatrick and Fifth, like on Google Maps or something, that could be a helpful view as well. But
I just updated. I think you should be able to share it now if you want to try one more time.
oh, yes, now I can. Okay. All right. So let me put this. There we go. Okay. Hopefully you all can see that. Oh, maybe not yet. Let me click the button share. That would help. All right. Now can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is just more of the same detail on that project, but specifically wanted to grab an image that the CDC had asked about, which was not originally in my slides, just because it's moved into our engineering group, but I can provide a brief update. So the BRT project is proposing to put a bus lane in on Fifth Avenue, headed inbound through Uptown, and a bus lane on Forbes Avenue, headed outbound through Uptown. As part of the work that's happening for that, there are 5 row houses at the corner of Kirkpatrick Street and Fifth Avenue that once this bus lane comes in, have basically no even nearby parking opportunities for residential parking. So there's nothing across the street. You can't park across the street and walk across the street. They can't park on the Birmingham Bridge, obviously. And Kirkpatrick Street has some pretty limited opportunities as well because it's pretty narrow. So what the project team did was designed in a small off-street surface parking lot that will be permit parking, basically just like you would see, you know, on another street in Uptown that may have permit parking for the residents to be able to use, and the city will convey this property, which it already owns, as public right of way. So this will enable those 5 residences that are there to be able to have a place to have a reasonable distance to get from the residence to a parking space. Otherwise, there just really aren't any options here. So I just wanted to give that specific update as it relates to Kirkpatrick Street. Kirkpatrick Street does not have transit directly on it, does not have planned transit on it, except for, you know, on Marathon Day, or other, you know, construction sort of detour on unplanned event days. But I think there was a specific question about this sort of connection up to the hill in particular. And so I just wanted to spend a brief moment on that. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks for revisiting this for us. We received notice of this just through the development activities meeting process. So there wasn't a lot of, and it didn't come through the development review panel at the community level. So there wasn't really an opportunity to kind of understand, you know, what this project was outside of the development activities meeting. I can say that it's an interesting use for a corner of such high profile. I mean, you know, this is the corner that if you're leaving the hill and going to the south side, you would see on the right side. And then if you're coming from Birmingham, if you're coming off of the Birmingham Bridge, it's, aside from those row homes, the first thing you would see. So it is an interesting use of such a prominent corner. So I guess I'd be curious to know what that process was.
Sure. Yeah, so the design review for the BRT project has had public meetings at each level. So the 90% design review, I believe, was last July. I'll have to look back at the project team's notes for that, where we kind of go through, you know, all of the designs. That this is a big corridor, so there's a lot. So I'm not at all surprised that this, you know, wasn't something that maybe jumped out to people at the time. just because there are so many pieces and so many intersections along this corridor. But that would have been sort of the moment that the team would have engaged the community about it. There's also a landscaping plan for the project too, so we could share that with you all. And because this will be in city right of way, it's city property now, you know, I'm sure I can't speak for the city, but I can connect you all with the project manager for this project at the city if there are desires to have discussions about special landscaping or special placemaking that might be able to happen, you know, in concert with this piece of infrastructure work being done, you know, to help elevate the presence of sort of entering the neighborhood or something. I can certainly pass that along.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important for, you know, this is a primary entry point for the Hill District neighborhood. And, you know, we really endorse a very strong placekeeping, you know, kind of model. And, you know, I think it'd be important to, you know, figure out how we can introduce some character. It's just, I mean, I know the area very, very well. It is an odd place for parking. I'd be curious about the construction. I don't want to get into the weeds right now relative to that, but it also seems like it might, you know, be a bit vulnerable to an accident, quite frankly, because I don't know that it's above ground, and it's a very, very, very busy corridor or node. So, you know, so you're saying that planning and that endorsement of this particular site for 5 residential parks came out of the last session that you all did last month, and then the development activities meeting was really just advancing that development. My understanding.
Yeah, yes. So the 90% design review happened last year, and that was for the whole corridor for the entire project of Oakland all the way through Uptown and all the way through downtown. I'm not sure, I'll have to ask what triggered the DAM meeting this past week. My assumption is that they are moving through the construction bid process, and so that triggers some of those city processes, but I haven't been through a lot of those myself, so I'm just that's just some guessing there. But what I will do is I will connect you with the project manager at DOMI. His name is Steve Otterman. He can speak very well to all of these design considerations, and keep us, of course, will be at the table as well with one of our PRT staff team members to kind of talk through what ideas or concerns there may be, and to talk about some of those traffic concerns too. I'm just not the best person to answer to those at this point.
Okay, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I have a few more brief updates. I will stop sharing though, because the rest of my info is in your slide deck. We can pull that back. All right, so that is the BRT project, and I did kind of skim over the fact that it has a name now, so we are calling it the sort of broader effort of on-street bus rapid transit. We have branded as PRTX, and this specific corridor is now named the University Line, so that's what we will start to refer to it as. I'm sure it'll take us some time to catch up to that new name, in addition to our other new name, lots of new names. So yeah, we can continue to provide updates on that project in addition to connecting you all with Steve and our engineers. So moving into future corridor projects, the next corridor that we are getting ready to start engagement on is called Corridor G, the river to river connection. And I did speak about this during the long range planning process. We were able to receive a grant from the FTA to do this planning work, and we have been working on getting it scoped and underway internally. We expect to be able to be underway and hopefully be in some level of community engagement by early next year. And so that's really exciting. This is going to be a really different and interesting project for us to move through. It's not one that we've done before on our planning team. What came out of the long range plan was a need to connect some communities from the Strip up to the Hill, over to Oakland, down to Hazelwood, and then down potentially as far as Carrick and Overbrook, and connecting into the light rail system. And all of these places are not connected directly today very well. So I think that's one of the reasons that it came out of the planning process. People are trying or wanting to go to some, groups of these pairs of places and not able to really do so by any mode, including driving. And so it came out as a potential priority corridor. But how we connect these places, or if all of these places are warranted to be connected or feasible to be connected or desired to be connected, is really a big question mark for us. So we're looking forward to some really interesting and unique community engagement with all of you as we start that. There will be very specific Hill District focused meetings for that. Each of those 6 communities will have their own sets of meetings to talk about what do we want as a community? How do we want to connect? Do we want to connect? What are the options that the team could look into for feasibility to see if there are opportunities here to better connect? So this could be anything from better bus service to bus rapid transit to new inclines to aerial trams or gondolas to other modes of the future that we haven't even thought of yet. It's a very unique corridor that really isn't served by a street network today. So we're looking forward to that and looking forward to engaging with all of you on that. And you can look for that in early 2024. And then moving into service specific projects, we also have two projects in that realm. One that is wrapping up over the next few months, at least from the planning perspective, not from the implementation perspective, but for planning, is that as a result of that BRT project I talked about, we will be reversing car traffic and other bus traffic on 2 key streets in downtown, 5th and 6th Avenues. And for those of you who use our service on the 81, 82, and 83, you know that 5th and 6th Avenues, or at least 5th Avenue, is used by those routes. So we have 44 bus routes that are impacted by the BRT coming in and sort of reversing things. And so we needed to take a fresh look at all bus routes in downtown and sort of pull them off the map and try to place them back on the map in ways that work. Downtown has 2 street grids that collide into each other. It's a very challenging place to have 84, 82 bus routes come into the center of, turn around, and go back out of, mostly without space for our operators to lay over and use a restroom. So it's a really complicated project. We have had now 3 rounds of community meetings, and our last round of community meetings is next week. So I'll drop in the chat the dates and times of those. Would love to have you come or tell your friends, family, neighbors to come and provide us specific feedback on the proposals. But on the next slide, you can have a sneak peek 6 days early, 7 days early, something like that, on what we will be showing for the 81, 82, and 83 routes. So today, those routes come in on Center Avenue, turn right on 5th Avenue, right again on Liberty, right again on 7th, and back to the Hill. What we are proposing, because BRT will now be in the way, and we need to shift things around to be able to make everything continue to work. We are proposing to shift the Hill District routes south 1 additional block, so there'll be even a little bit more coverage in downtown from what there is today. So instead of coming all the way in on Center Avenue, they're proposed to turn left on Washington Place at the corner of the PPG Arena, and then turn right on 5th and a pretty immediate left onto Diamond, which is that sort of diagonal back street that heads behind the highway ramps there, and then a right onto Forbes. And so we don't have bus service on Forbes Avenue today, so we're proposing to add it back in and to add 3 new bus stops. One actually is not shown in the slide because I didn't send you the latest, so my apologies for that, but there's one to be proposed at Diamond and Boyd, then the next one at Forbes and Grant, and then the 3rd new stop at Forbes and Wood. And then the buses would turn right onto Wood Street, head up Wood Street, use the stop at Wood Street and 6th, then turn right onto Liberty, and from there follow their current routing in downtown back out to the Hill. So that would follow Liberty to 7th and 7th Avenue out. So that's fresh off the press. We will be showing that at the public meetings next week to hear comments and thoughts on that, as well as all of the other 79 bus routes that we have some proposed changes to. And then the other service project is just a really high level because it hasn't started yet. We will be conducting an entire full county transit network study. So kind of like what we've been doing for downtown, except instead of, one little square mile, it'll be 732 square miles. So a big undertaking. It'll be about a 2-year project. It will start this summer or early fall with community engagement. There will be many rounds of community engagement and opportunities to provide feedback. So I know we've had many discussions over the last few years with the Hill, both in some of our own planning projects, as well as with city planning projects, about where the 81, 82, and 83 go, and where they turn and how frequently they come, things like that. Those will be all great opportunities for us all to have those conversations and talk about what changes, if any, are desired to the network. So more to come on that one as well. That one hasn't started yet, but again, should be starting in the next couple of months here. We're getting ready to kick that one off. I believe, just wanted to provide a really brief update because we just get the question a lot on fair programming and sort of what's new in the world of fairs. So I do want to highlight there is a pilot going on right now being funded by Allegheny County Department of Human Services for low-income fairs. And so we're about, I think, 6 months into that pilot right now. There's 6 months left. And so we're hoping for some really interesting data to come out of that pilot program that may help us with future policy decisions, or the county with future policy decisions around fairs for people who are lower or no income. We also have a bulk pass program pilot going on right now that is funded by a grant we were able to get from the Heinz Endowments. And that's helping us look at employer bulk pass options, which is when you would provide, say, an employer with a transit pass for every single employee, regardless of when or how much or how often they may use transit, to try and see how it changes behavior. And this will help us better understand how to price programs like this. Of course, we have a UPass program with the universities that's pretty well established, but we really haven't moved much beyond that into the space of employer bulk passing. And so we're trying to better understand how to make sure those types of programs can be most flexible and also, most helpful when used. And then we continue to expand our options for other fair vending, including ticket vending machines. And we have a ticket vending machine in the Hill now. I think that's probably been there for 2+ years now, but a couple years ago it was new. And then we also now have mobile ticketing, both on our own app, which is called Ready to Ride, the number 2, and on the transit app. And the Ready to Ride program actually also has some potential future add-ons that we may be able to do really interesting things with stores or other locations where people could use that program to print out a receipt with a QR code that could then be used on the bus, which may help with cash users who are using cash more frequently or may not have a mobile phone. And then, of course, programs that have existed for a long time include that seniors ride free. Hopefully everybody knows that. If not, check out our website for sure with their passes. Children and riders with disabilities are at half fare, and then our UPass programs with the universities. I think that is the end of my slides. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Do we have any questions from our audience members? If you'd like, you can put your question in the Q&A feature, or you can raise your hand and we will invite you up to make comment.
I did have a question, Amy. I'll bring up the slide that you were mentioning about the Hills service with the strip. So were you mentioning that you're exploring all kinds of options, correct? So are one of those options just like extending, say, the 83 or a different bus route through the strip district instead of like, I might be incorrect, but I believe all of the Hill buses end in downtown and then just turn back around and go up, right? So is that a possibility as well, where it's just extending a line a different way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the service of the 81, 82, and 83 is going to collide in both projects. I think both in the broader transit network study that will come up, and also very specifically in this Corridor G project that will come up too. So we'll just need to work on our end to make sure we're not over asking the community the same questions, right? We don't want to over plan. So making sure we're being clear when we do come to the community not duplicating. But yes, that project is scoped to basically look at any and all possible ways that we can better connect the Hill with the Strip, with Oakland, with Hazelwood, and points beyond, heading into sort of the southeast side of the Southern Hilltop and South Hills communities.
Awesome. Thank you so much for clarifying that. That helps. That makes a lot more sense.
Sure.
I have a question about your a couple of items. One is your intercommunal connections for the Hill District. Can you tell me a little bit about how you all have improved intercommunal connections within the Hill District, given the topography of the neighborhood? It's very hard to traverse on foot. How have your recent investments or how will your upcoming investments address those, I guess that would technically be a north-south connectors within the Hill District?
Sure. So we don't have anything that has recently changed that is sort of an active or about to go into effect in the Hill itself. We have been pausing on service changes over the last couple of years since the pandemic hit. One, because we've been having some significant operator shortages, which we continue to have challenges with. And two, because we knew what came out of this long range plan was that people wanted to do a bus network study. People wanted to talk about where their bus routes went and wanted to talk about changes to their bus routes. So we went after that grant, which we were able to receive in 2022 and have been scoping this big project to get underway. So those are exactly the types of things that we will be asking the community to tell us about when we do the bus network study. We do know some things that have come out of some of the city planning projects more recently. So we're aware of the desire for more north-south connections. The 81 and 83 do snake their way through the Hill, probably more than most bus routes snake their way, which has pros and cons, certainly for connectivity with topographic challenges that can be really helpful. It can also be really slow, or it can create pretty infrequent service. So those are the types of things that we're going to need to talk with the community about, those types of trade-offs. I think the benefit, I think, to both the 81 and 83 routes is that they are very specific to the Greater Hill District in who they are serving. So we're not talking about this giant corridor where we need to talk to 10 different communities and balance everybody's, desires against each other. This is a pretty sort of hyper local to bus routes. And so I think that'll be a pretty effective planning process for us to talk about how we can make those connections. We've also heard some significant desires to have, I think the Strip, we haven't heard quite as much, but have either the 81 or the 83 go somewhere else, right? So they're both going to South Side right now. 82 obviously carries you east, but having 3 routes in the community, which all go to downtown on one end and 2 go to another place on the other end, may limit, sort of those one-seat ride opportunities as well. So we could look at different routing options outside of the Hill for those routes that are directly connected to the Hill, if there are other places that residents are looking to go in those one-seat rides. I know Uptown has been a specific desire as well that has come up a few times over the recent past with sort of routing down Dinwiddie and some other ideas like that. So we've been hearing all those. We've been hearing a lot of conflicting things about all of those, but we haven't led that planning work either. So we're sort of getting ready to do that with this next step.
Great. So I guess I want a couple of things, and most of this is centered on equity. I'm curious to know how PRT centers the most challenged and most economically disenfranchised communities in its work, holistically in its planning and in its outcomes as well. Because I can tell you that we have had a lot of complaints about that intercommunal connectivity, particularly for those who live on the northernmost part of the Hill District, which is Bedford Avenue, which is also where one of our largest public housing communities is located. That has been isolated in many ways, particularly relative to getting down basically to just a grocery store or to whatever amenity, since Center Avenue is our core, is our main street. And so when we think of such tremendous investments that are coming to the region, I would be very curious to know how PRT thinks of how to support those who need the greatest amount of help and who may be disconnected from economic opportunities and job centers. Can you just tell me a little bit about how PRT thinks about that and how it's evidenced in the outcomes, or how you all measure that?
Sure. Great question. And we're actually just about to issue an update of how we measure that. So we measure that through something called our Equity Index of Mobility Need. And it is based on both census, so resident-based data, as well as job-based data throughout Allegheny County. So it's a GIS mapping tool that we create. Right now, there are 9 factors in it, including income, race, disability, seniors, kids, single mothers, people without access to a vehicle, and people who don't speak English. And I think I'm missing one there, but that's 8 of the 9 anyway. And so we compile that data. We're doing an update of it right as we speak. So we'll be presenting it this fall to our board to look at it. But the report is on our website. We can link to that as well for the 2019 update, which is the last update that we issued. We use that for pretty much all decision making that we make in our planning group. So that equity index was used in the long range plan. It's the reason that the corridor on the slide in front of us came out as #1, because equity in Hazelwood and the Hill District are very high. And so the places that were being connected by these corridors were prioritized for equity. So that's the reason it was sort of a surprise to us that this corridor came out as #1. We thought some of the other corridors that people are talking about all the time, like, Homestead to McKeesport, on State Road 837, and some of these other places would come out #1, but this one did. And also it's a little bit of a surprise because it's not really a corridor yet. But so that equity index is used in everything that we do. It's used in all of our station improvement programming prioritization. So anytime we undertake a planning project, it is based off of prioritizing for equity. So we're always looking to do projects in the communities that have the greatest need first. That is not only because we want to be good stewards and good community members, it's also because people in higher equity places ride transit much more frequently. So it is good for us from every different angle to focus on those equity factors when we do our project prioritization. And then any service change planning that we do is also highly focused on equity. So when we have had to pull service back over the last couple of years, due to shortages of operators, it has been focused on not pulling service back in communities of higher equity need and focusing where we're pulling service on places of lower equity, which might be more commuter-like routes. So it's very foundational in all that we do, and it will be part of the transit network study as well as we start to undertake that, and certainly will be part of Corridor G also.
Great, thank you. And I have one other question. And, I can't help but to wonder, I mean, you all have a lot of data about your riders because now you have a lot of mobile solutions around, fare and ridership. Is that right?
Yeah, we do. So we have great data about where people get on and off. We have okay data coming from the mobile app is now connected. That the mobile app's been kind of slowly coming on board. So we're sort of slowly trying to integrate that into all of our other systems. But we've been able to see where people get on and off for quite a long time. We can see information from like Connect Card registered users. That's not always the best indicator. We don't like to use that too much because people who, are registering for Connect Cards have other correlation factors, are less likely to be typical of our entire demographic. It might be more likely to be a monthly pass holder or someone who rides for work or something like that, as opposed to a cash user, of course, who, is not able to be banked or is not able to get a weekly pass. Or something like that. So we do have Connect Card data, but we don't use it in too much that we do.
The reason why I was asking is because I would think that direct surveys of riders would generate the most accurate input and information relative to the needs of riders. How are you all using that data to solicit direct input from riders?
Yeah, so we have surveys that happen often, and we will probably have to do a few for the full transit network study. We try to be cautious with them as well, though, because we can also over survey people. We did do a big survey last fall, just basically for demographic data, trying to get enough demographic data about every route to be able to have the data that we need if we were to create any, sort of decision-making frameworks around that in the future. But even that is really a challenge. Even surveying people, we have a street team that we will send out who will hand, surveys to people or collect surveys from people. And then of course we have, the QR codes and things like that where people can use their phones or text with, but all of those can be challenging to get the demographic that is your ridership. So every time we do have to do a survey that is representative of our ridership, it is very, very difficult. It's very easy to get certain populations of riders to respond to surveys immediately and fill up the quota that we need for our samples. But then there are certain riders that are very difficult for us to hear from. And those are most often lower income riders who may be riding transit at different times of the day, may be busier because they're working more jobs, may not be interested in giving us their feedback for some other reason. So yes, we do survey. We try not to do it too much. We will probably have to do it in the network study for a couple of different things, but we try and keep it sort of as focused as we can. And then have things like our websites where people can provide comments or put comments on maps and other things like that to give us feedback on things if they desire.
Okay, no, thank you for that. I appreciate the insight. I definitely think that if you all were to offer, some type of payment or, gift card or something of that nature in the off hours, like maybe between 6 and midnight, because a lot of riders, obviously they're workers, some work in the evening, but a lot work during the day. And are all already kind of overburdened with other responsibilities. But I would think that you would get, and you could probably also use like a geofence or something of that nature to just, inquire with riders of a specific geography. I'd love to see that data for the Hill District. I think that people would respond, especially if they could do it directly from their phone, as long as it's not, too extensive and 100 questions, those types of things. People probably are not going to respond to. But I would think a reasonable survey of 15 questions, people might be willing to do that for, and to be compensated for their time. But my last question is, or comment, question/comment is, when is this meeting where people can give input next week that you're referencing?
Oh yeah, thanks. Let me drop that in the chat. So it's June 28th at 5:30 p.m. and June 29th at 12 p.m. Let's see if I can get it into the chat here.
So June 28th at 5:30 and June 29th at 5:30. And where will that meeting be?
June 29th is at 12 p.m. I will send you the flyer, Marimba, so that you can share it with everyone. But they will both be online. They will both be Zoom. So June 28th, 5:30 p.m., June 29th, 12 p.m. And there's a link on this flyer for registering, which you can do right up till the moment, but you need to register to get the link.
Okay, and this is people's opportunity to give PRT feedback about what specifically?
About the proposal of where the 81, 82, and 83 will change their route in downtown.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you very much, Amy.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. With the more people we get and the more feedback we get, the better we can move that forward and keep evolving. Absolutely.
We will try to get that in this weekend's roundup, but it's already packed with information. We'll absolutely share it on our social media. So are there any other questions for Amy before we wrap with PRT's presentation? We really appreciate you all coming out to share these updates. It's been helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're always happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Having none, if we could go to our last slide, we can wrap, I believe. All righty, so this is just a reminder to be social with the Hill CDC. You can sign up for our Hill District Weekly Roundup, which is a weekly newsletter that comes out every single weekend where we reach over 2,500 residents and stakeholders. You can sign up for that at hilldistrict.org/sign up. You can also follow us on our social media platforms at Facebook, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter at My Hill District, and on LinkedIn if you search for Hill Community Development Corporation. It seems that we do not have, and well, maybe one more question. I wonder if they have public comment for this plan during the PRT board meeting. Good question. One of the stakeholders here wanted to emphasize for PRT to make sure that people know about when the PRT board meets, where public comment can be accepted. So if you could share that with us, Amy, that would also be helpful, and we will make sure we get that out to folks on our list as well. I believe PRT board has monthly meetings?
Yes, the fourth Friday at 9:30, and I will send you a link to where you sign up for those.
All right, thank you so much. All righty. We appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you for coming out. Always a pleasure. We will be coming back to you very soon for another plans update once we have new information to share. As you know, we try to do this every other month, but we only call that meeting if there's new information to share. With that said, we are going to log off, and thank you all for participating in our bi-monthly Hill District Plans meeting. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.